When building or integrating an app with Microsoft Entra ID, your app may need access to sensitive resources like a email, calendar data, or files. To get this access, your app must ask the resource owner, such as the user or admin, for authorization. This process known as permission consent, which ensures that apps only access what they need and with full transparency. When developing an app, you need to decide how it will access data. Microsoft Entra ID supports two primary access scenarios such as delegated access and app only access. In delegated access, which is also known as on behalf of a user access, your app acts on behalf of a sign-in user. It accesses resources using delegated permissions, also called scopes, meaning it can only access what the user can. For example, if Tom is sign-in user and your app has the file read all scope, it can only read files Tom has permission to access. In app only access, means without a user, your app acts independently without a user signing in. It uses application permissions, also known as app roles, to access resources directly. This is ideal for automation, background tasks, or services that need broad access, like reading all files in a tenant. Only an admin can grant this level of permission. Let's unpack how permissions are granted. Users or admins must explicitly approve your app's access request. During the first login or when new permissions are requested, users see a consent prompt showing the permissions the app is requesting. Users can grant consent for delegated permissions that affect only their own data. If your app requests high privilege permissions, admin consent might be required. Admin consent required for app-only permissions and some sensitive delegated permissions. Admins can grant consent for themselves or the entire organization. Admins or resource owners can pre-authorize an app so users don't see a consent prompt. This is common for apps pre-approved by the organization. There are two consent scenarios in action, and they are static consent and dynamic consent. In static consent, permissions are predefined in the app registration and requested at login. In dynamic consent, your app asks for additional permissions as needed during runtime. For example, an app may request access to users' calendar data only when trying to schedule a meeting. Let's unpack how to manage app permissions. To ensure your app requests only what is needed and in a secure way, during app registration, you define the permissions your app will require in the API permission sections, and then choose whether they are delegated permissions or application permissions. For delegated access, you ensure users know what data the app is accessing on their behalf, and you keep permission requests minimal to avoid overwhelming or alarming users. For app-only access, you use app roles for broad permissions but keep the principle of least privilege in mind. And remember, only admins can grant consent for application permissions. Lastly, for reviewing permissions regularly, you use Microsoft Entra ID's reporting tools to monitor which permissions have been granted, who consented, and whether they are still needed. In short, managing app registration permission consent is all about balancing security, usability, and trust. It's a critical step in building applications that integrate smoothly with Microsoft Entra ID while keeping both users and resources safe.